Howdy folks, I'm Ryan Lecoq. Welcome to another Budget Tech review. So I've mentioned a few times in the past that this is the capture card I use. Any footage you've seen from games, dubs from old tapes, anything like that, comes off this Hauppauge HD PVR2. Now, these are pretty popular among a lot of your sort of low budget, classic tech and game YouTubers because this guy is able to take analog inputs through RCA, component, or S-Video, and it has its own built-in analog to digital converter and upscaler. So it's not anything like a FrameMeister, but this has it all built into one box. So a lot of folks that don't have a ton of money but want to be able to stream or record footage from older games will use this one. I got this one used for 50 bucks. It was a screaming deal and it's been great for me. But over the last couple years, I couldn't help but notice some of these USB stick capture cards that have been coming out of sites like AliExpress. Now you can find a lot of them on Amazon or eBay. And of course I was curious because, hey, being able to take all the cables and everything that go into this and replace it with just a simple USB stick, that sounds pretty awesome. And a lot of these have been getting pretty good reviews. But I have become hesitant to review these products that you can only get from the shady corners of the internet. I would like to be able to stand by these reviews for years, and I don't want to direct people towards products that they're going to find themselves where if theirs doesn't turn out to be quite as perfect as mine, they're not able to contact support, they're not able to return it. So I was absolutely overjoyed when Old Skool, best known for their classic game console controllers and adapters, released their own version of one of these. Now, this is very likely just one of the products we've seen before rebranded, but Old Skool is a brand where you can contact them on Twitter and Facebook. They have support lines, they'll answer their phones and emails, and this one can also be bought in a lot of brick and mortar stores. At this point, I want to mention that this one is courtesy of Gamers Anonymous, my sponsor, who's also provided a lot of the other cables. Now, I did have to pay a little bit for this one because I begged one out of their small shipment for inventory, but again, Gamers Anonymous is a source for a lot of these gaming peripherals that I review, and if you live in the Albuquerque, New Mexico area, you can actually buy this product in their store, much like a lot of the other gaming products that I review. So, without any further ado, and now that I've quickly plugged my sponsor, let's get into it. Let's start off with how the footage looks. Now, I'm using some Switch games because that's what I've been playing recently, but I will be doing an update soon as I get my Xbox Series X to show the full input capability of this device, which is 4K 60, although it only captures at 1080p. But Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, although it has fairly poor frame rate, that's the game by the way, not the capture card, it shows off the wide range color that this stick supports very well, and the colors come out very vibrant, so that depending on the screen you're using, it should look very close to playing it on an actual Switch, where the colors are extremely bright and vibrant, and it's really a very pretty game, I have to say, especially compared to its predecessor. Moving on to a little bit of Pumpkin Jack, we've got a little bit more contrast between lights and darks. Now, this game runs a little smoother, and it's a better example of how it responds to quick action. A big question I'm sure a lot of you have about this is how is the lag, because in order for you to just be able to capture with nothing but this stick, you have to be able to play in your capture window and not have to buy an additional HDMI splitter to get full speed gameplay. It's definitely good enough for action-adventure games like this and for RPGs. I would say even for a game of Rocket League between friends, but I would definitely not want to be in a fighting game tournament or a competitive shooter using through the capture window. There is a little bit of lag. I would compare it to cloud gaming, which is getting a lot better. I played through most of Death Stranding on GeForce Now, and it was an extremely playable experience. Even with that being said, I wouldn't want to be in a fighting game tournament on cloud gaming, and it feels very similar. It does have an interesting rubber banding effect in that it seems to have a variable buffer. And how that comes into effect is if you pause the game for a moment and then come back, there's more lag, and then it sort of snaps back and becomes more responsive again. So I'm assuming that has to do with some sort of variable buffer that the device uses, but that is just what it feels like using it. When you're using it consistently and it's not having that brief additional lag, it's really quite playable in most games. Finally, I captured a little bit of The Witcher 3 just to show off something with more subdued colors to see how it comes through, and a lot more going on the screen. I will again be testing the Xbox Series X with some different types of games. These are just the games I've been playing recently, and capturing off of my Switch is something that is important to me because it doesn't have the ability to upload its own clips of more than a few seconds and only in certain games. So again, this is not the full capability. These are running at lower dynamic resolutions, and a couple of these games are capped at 30 frames per second. But it captures really good footage, and you can see even without the full capability. I'm honestly very happy with this for the price and what it is. The color actually is better than my HD PVR2. In some other ways, it's definitely one of those, it doesn't have a lot of settings to mess with, so pretty much what you see is what you get, but I was honestly pretty happy with that. As far as initial build quality and feel, the only thing I would really say is that because it's a USB stick design, the weight is resting on just the connector going into your computer. So it's up to you if you're okay with that, or if you'd feel more secure putting it through a hub or an extender or something to take the weight off of the device itself. But other than that, it feels pretty solid, honestly. As of my initial review, I'm definitely recommending this as a buy. Like a number of the products that I've recommended in the past, this is the sort of thing that will enable you to do something that normally costs more for less. I love products like that. I'm all about them. As I mentioned before, competitive shooters without using a splitter like this guy are going to give you a little bit of lag, and it might be enough that you find that you're not competitive. It is extremely minimal, again, and I would compare it to good cloud gaming like GeForce Now. So that being said, considering almost any game, unless you're trying to play something competitively that is extremely fast-paced, it is fast enough to play it in your OBS window or your streaming client of choice. I would definitely say this is a recommend, a buy. These are $19.99 to buy in brick and mortar stores. You can find them a little cheaper if you look around online. Definitely up to your preference and comfort. But if you are someone looking to get into streaming and you don't have a second monitor, you just have a laptop, you want to hook up your video game systems, and you want to be able to capture footage from them and their HDMI output, this is all you need right here. And as you've seen here, in my opinion, the footage is pretty good. Now, I'm between Xboxes right now while I'm waiting for my Series X, so there will be a follow-up from this where I test its ability to take 4K and downsample it to 1080p recording. There's nothing on here about whether this supports HDR, and I actually don't have another HDR device. I probably could figure it out, but I'm really excited for my new Xbox, so I'm going to test and see if it does 4K HDR through here, and if I'm able to capture HDR footage, even if it is just in 1080p. That would be nice, though the Xbox is able to upload directly, so it's not a necessity. I'm just basically going to be using that for testing. So look for an update on this, tested with the Xbox Series X, but for now, strong recommend. I would say this is about the cheapest way you're going to be able to get on Twitch or YouTube or whatever your streaming service of choice is, coming directly from consoles, and you're going to have pretty decent footage.